Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Season 6, Episode 20 of Conservation Conversations with BirdLife South Africa. I'm your host, Jessica Wilmot, coming to you live from a seemingly cold, hearing some thunderstorm in Johannesburg. Behind the scenes, as tech support, we have one of our colleagues and hosts, John Kinghorn, who's going to help us tonight. So thanks, John, for the support. Then on to tonight's exciting webinar, the reason why we're all here. Citizen science is one of the most inspiring movements in conservation today. It's all about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Sorry, John, you can go to the next slide. Contributing real scientific data by observing, recording, and sharing what they see in nature. It really is an easy way to get involved in conservation initiatives. Across Southern Africa, passionate birders and nature lovers are helping power vital research through projects like waterbird monitoring, which is around the corner, road counts of our large and charismatic species, and of course, the second Southern African Bird Atlas project, better known as SABAP2. SABAP2 has become the gold standard for bird data collection, mapping the biodiversity, distribution, and status of our birds with incredible precision. This information forms the backbone of major conservation initiatives, from the recent regional Red Data Book of Threatened Birds to the upcoming National Biodiversity Assessment. Tonight, we'll delve into these projects, explore how your sightings and checklists make a real difference, and share how you can get involved, whether you're a seasoned birder or just beginning your citizen science journey. Speaking to this topic are two of our colleagues, Dr. Alan Lee and Dr. Dave Ehlers-Smit. Alan's passion for conservation has taken him across the globe, from studying the ecology of parrots in the Peruvian Amazon for his PhD to leading cutting-edge research right here at BirdLife South Africa. As the Science and Innovation Program Manager, he's dedicated to designing and publishing high-quality scientific work, from spatial and conservation modeling to population viability analysis, all aimed at safeguarding birds and their habitats. His program is known for developing innovative approaches to complex conservation challenges across all of our projects, and most recently, he served as the lead scientist for the recent regional Red Data Book of Threatened Birds, also available on our website. Then Dave, his conservation journey began deep in the jungles of the Indonesian Borneo, where he completed his PhD on forest ecology. With more than 18 years of ecological and academic research experience, Dave brings a wealth of knowledge and an infectious enthusiasm for birds to his role here at BirdLife. His work bridges the gap between science and action, supporting SABAP2 and BirdLasser, maintaining and developing our conservation data repository and national bird checklist, and contributing to the red listing process. Dave also provides vital scientific support across BirdLife South Africa's many programs, ensuring that every conservation decision is rooted in solid science. Welcome, Dave and Alan. We're incredibly excited to learn how vital conservation science is shaping conservation interventions. Before I give the floor, I just want to remind everybody to please use the Q&A box for our Q&A session, which will follow the presentation. Over to you guys.
Good evening. Hi, everybody. Welcome again. Excited to be here and looking forward to sharing my enthusiasm for citizen science projects, specifically South Africa or Africa's citizen science projects, and hoping that you'll get interested, whatever side or whatever your experience may be within these applications. So tonight we're going to be talking about what is citizen science, where is it being useful for BirdLife South Africa and beyond, scientists and researchers. We want to also touch on a few technicalities and just make sure that people understand the difference between an app, the thing on your phone, and the projects, i.e. SABAP2, CAR, and Quack. We're going to go into a little bit of detail on some of these projects, specifically CAR and Quack. David will be telling us a little bit about those two specifically. So I'm sure that most of the members of our audience consider themselves to be a birder to some degree or other across the birding spectrum, whether you're just someone who likes to stay at home and feed the Cape Weavers and get pleasure out of those intimate little interactions. Or perhaps you're someone who's in a bird club who gets joy out of the fellow birders around you. Or perhaps you're part of South Africa's listing community out there chasing 600 or more species, heading out to see all these vagrants that rock up on our shores. Or maybe you're an expedition birder, wanting to see birds that are really hard to see and are a challenge to get to. So my mission is that all of these categories can be useful somehow. You can enjoy your birds, but you can make that birding experience useful as well. So citizen scientists can be an easy thing to do, logging birds on your phone, or you can make it a mission. So here we've got a personal account from Martin Milani, Potgieter, who really get a lot of joy out of atlasing, the fact that they can atlas as a couple, that they're in nature, and this is the way of giving back, birding with a purpose. All right, people who just love birds and going out there and listing birds in a systematic way. Or you could be someone like Les Underhill. Les Underhill, of course, led SABAP2 for a long time, father of the ADU, and initiated many of these projects. And he's still involved in citizen science and he's still publishing. So his latest paper has just come out using citizen science data to look at barn swallow patterns in relation to climate indices. And very importantly, he recommends that SABAP2 be continued indefinitely. All right. So for me, as a data scientist at BirdLife South Africa, the projects that I find useful and I get most excited about are the ones that are hosted by the Fitzpatrick Institute at the University of Cape Town. We know SABAP2, the coordinated avifaunal road counts, the Quack project, coordinated water boat counts, and these are the most useful ones for me, looking at bird trends, trying to figure out where birds are, what's happening to them in the face of multitudinal threats and a changing world. They also host SAFRING, the division which is in charge of capturing and ringing birds, but that's a very detailed and specialist citizen science project. You do need to be trained up in order to partake in that, and I'm very sure that we'll be featuring SAFRING in one of the upcoming conservation conversations, so stay tuned for that. So these are all projects, right? So projects have a protocol, and we want to make sure that you understand that there's a difference between those and the apps, which can be used to feed into those or completely different citizen science projects or apps. So iNaturalist is an example of one where you take photos and you upload it to a website. It can be of anything, birds included. And there's eBird, global citizen science dataset, which is becoming ever more popular. And BirdLife and Birdno are the apps on your phone which can feed into SABAP2 specifically. So BirdLife, a third-party software developed by Hank Nell, and it is the preferred partner for BirdLife South Africa just because we're able to get that data and we're able to do so much good stuff with it if you sign up for the threatened species course. Now, I know my daughter signed up for Bindo. She likes that because it's got little pictures and things. And if you're just starting off on your birding journey and getting into citizen science, why don't you give Bindo a try? All right, so again, just to clarify these very important terms, BirdMap. This is the data collection protocol, the way that we contribute data towards SABAP2. So we're defining that we need to go to a set area, a pentad, sort of like 8 by 9 kilometers, 5 minutes by 5 minutes. And we want to, for a full protocol called the gold standard of our data, is you want to try and be spending a minimum of 2 hours and trying to get to all accessible habitats. So that's a protocol. And that data, we can use those lists to not only determine if a species is somewhere, but also if a species is not from somewhere. All right, so you get presence absence data from that, and it's super useful. So SABAP2 is an implementation of this BirdMap protocol, and it is one of several African Bird Atlas projects. The others include Nigerian Bird Atlas projects and the Kenya Bird Map. All right. And BirdLasso is just the most popular, still currently, data submission software. All right, so that sits on your phone. Just because you're using BirdLasso does not mean you're contributing to SABAP2. There's some steps you need to go through, and I'll outline those in a second. But if you want to find out any more of that information, there is a paper that goes into laborious detail. It's on the Ostrich website, or you can pause here if you're a future YouTuber and grab that URL. All right, so why do I get so excited about SABAP2 as a citizen science data set? And because it really is a gold standard, it's one of the best in the world. Why is that? Okay, first of all, we've outlined that we've got this protocol, bird map protocol. You have a defined area in which you're searching for your bird and a defined time limit. Okay, this is a manageable and scalable protocol, which means that most birders would be happy to go out there on an average morning, spending 2 hours of birding. That's fantastic in an area that's not super far that you can drive around to and hopefully get to all the dams and different habitats which are in that particular block. Super important. This map in the center of the slide is our coverage map from South Africa, probably from a year or two back already. And this is direct and monitoring. So one of the sayings of the SABAP2 projects, you want to go deep, you want to do lots of cards in a certain spot, and you want to go wide. All right. And you want to do that to try and understand the spatial distribution of birds. Otherwise, if you don't have that, people just go back to the same national parks or just atlas from their gardens. You get very uneven coverage, very some problem that's known as yeah, it's a bias in the data that is problematic. So the coverage map encourage us to get out there, go where no birder or atlaser has been before, and try and fill in some of those white blocks in order to be the first person to submit a list to a particular area. All right, that's a fantastic protocol. But what is even better is that all of this data is checked, right? We've got these vetting systems which are in place, so your data is automatically checked to see if that species has occurred in a pentad before, and if it isn't, you get an out of range form, which means that you just have to justify if you've seen a bird in a location because it's never been seen there before. It's most of the time, if it's a valid sighting, that's an exciting thing. You're witnessing change in distribution or expansion of range, or you've recorded a very rare bird species. So valid out of range forms, please do fill them in and submit them. They do help everybody, including us, understand how birds are changing in distribution. Next, this bird atlas project has been going on since 2007. So we have longitudinal data where we can compare year on year how things are changing. Where are the birds appearing? Where are they disappearing? And for conservation purposes, this is so important. We're able to compare like with like over the years. It's suitable for multiple statistical techniques. All of the logos on the bottom here, Sanby, Seek at the UCT, University of the Witwatersrand, AP Leventis Ornithological Research Institute, they all sit behind this protocol, and we can see in that top chart over there the number of publications growing year by year using this data set in all sorts of new and exciting ways. So if I haven't convinced you yet, because I'm coming at from a bit of a science angle, Tanya Anderson put together a fantastic overview to SABAP2 with all sorts of really good reasons to get involved, not just because you're contributing data, but just because birding is a healthy habitat. So you've got the social competitive elements, tells us about the state of our environment. It's good for your mental well-being, can be entertaining, it's intellectual stimulation, and you'll be contributing to ecotourism amongst many other things. All right, so what have we learned from this data set? We have learned, due to the recent completion of the Red Data Book, the Regional Red Listing project, assessing extinction risk of the birds of South Africa, Lesotho and Eswatini, that our birds are not doing well. We have categorized more species as threatened or near threatened than ever before, and the most threatened birds are our seabirds, followed by the raptors, and with surprising declines in the sets of water birds. These species accounts are all written up, free to access via the BirdLife website, Red Data Book, and if that's all too much for you to handle, then go and buy Birds on the Brink, which is a popular accounting of those, but also featuring all the passionate people like you who have been involved in these various projects, monitoring birds and figuring out how they're doing. So SABIP2 is a proven track record in terms of being able to say birds are increasing or decreasing. This goes back some way now. I'm just pulling out this example from Marshall Eagle, where the scientist, Professor Arjun Amar and his student Daniel Klutter, looked at SABIP2 data and compared it to the number of Marshall Eagle nests in the Kalahari, and there was a decline in Marshall Eagle nests and also in the reporting rate for this bird species. It's not always bad news, though. Mark Brown put together a team to look at how SABIP2 reporting rates were going for the African black oystercatcher, showing that this species is doing well. It has benefited from the closure of vehicle traffic on beaches, and it is also benefiting from invasive mussel species. So we can also see these good news stories coming out within the SABIP2 data set. On everybody's lips at the moment is the case of the Botha's lark. With SABIP1 and SABIP2, we can compare historical changes in distribution. This is the SABIP1, SABIP2 change map over here. Lots of red. That's not a good thing, but you can see that there were records from quite a wide area. And if we hone in then to the SABIP2 region, we see that that is a much smaller area. Still lots of red. The species. This was a big alarm bell that something is going wrong, which was validated by surveys on the ground and continues to be validated by the work ongoing by Matthew Rolovitz and other members of the Botha's lark conservation team. Because SABIP2 has been going on for a long time, we're also able to do machine learning methods in order to predict how a species is doing now compared to how it was, but extrapolating through all these blank areas with 17,000 odd pentads for our region, it is very difficult to get to all of these, especially in every year. Basically impossible. So we do have techniques now where we can predict for the early SABIP2 period and compare to where those predictions are for the later period. Southern bald ibis is a conservation success story. It is doing better, but by that, we do still think that there is some range contraction going on, specifically in KZN from modeling, but declines nowhere as severe as they used to be, and some of those colonies doing very well. We also use the BirdLife data. As I mentioned, we can get the spatial locations of where the records were, which are on a much finer scale than the pentad grids, and using various environmental variables, we're able to predict where the species are at a much finer scale. We did this for the red data book at a 2 by 2 kilometer grid level, and we are able to do much finer scale habitat suitability models, which feed into all sorts of environmental policy tools, such as the site screening tool, which directs developments. And yep, this is how that data is used. So within BirdLife, we're able to take each of those points. We're able to figure out where those birds are in terms of the local environmental conditions and figure out how they're doing. We can also join data sets, so SABIP2 and the other African Bird Atlas projects, as well as using iNaturalist records and eBird data. We've also been able to look at produce species distribution models for across Africa at the pentad level and use this data to examine larger indices of range or finer scale habitat suitability models. Then, just a final reminder, BirdLife is an app, and you need to click a few buttons, do a few things in order to get it into the SABIP2 project. So when you're using BirdLife, make sure that you select the atlasing mode on your app. When you've done your birding, you need to click the options button and manually select submit to birdmap. You need to decide if you have ad hoc or a full protocol. Have you done more than 2 hours of atlasing? Then you can select full protocol. And you need to decide if you've done the amounts of allotted time or not. The BirdLife app does try and keep time, but it often underestimates it. So it will give you a warning if it thinks that you've done less than 2 hours. And then you can also click the options of if you've sampled at night, if you have managed to get all habitats. And once you then click submit Only then is your data sent through to the servers at the University of Cape Town within BirdLife, so you get the little green submitted indication on your checklist. All right, so don't forget to do that. Now, moving on from SABAP to the coordinated avifaunal road count. Again, thinking about the spectrum of what can be done and where you're comfortable with. Maybe you're not so happy with apps and you want to get involved somehow with bird monitoring. Well, actually, the coordinated avifaunal road count is one of the easiest apps to get involved in, one of the easiest projects to get involved in, because it only involves pen and paper. It is, yeah, it's an amazing project going back to 1993. And another easy thing about it is it's only done twice a year, once in summer and once in winter. So usually the last Saturday in January and July, respectively. And that data set has been going on for ages on all these driven routes. So you just get in your car, you grab the data sheets, which you can download from the website, and you start filling them out. And it's only a subset of species as well. So not only are you not using a phone, you're using paper, but you don't have to identify all birds. It tends to be the big, pretty, charismatic species which are being monitored here. So it's 51 different species. The historical background means it's mostly crane storks and bustards. Raptors were added, and recently we have added more raptors and also the vultures, given the plight of vultures across southern Africa. So there you go. This is a screenshot of the data form. All we need to know is a little bit of basic information, which route you're on, weather conditions, things like that, which do impact how well you're going to be monitoring your birds. The birds are abbreviated to two-letter, well, occasionally three-letter codes. So BC would be for blue crane. So in our data sheet now, we've seen a couple of blue cranes and a couple of chicks. We start our drive. We get to 1.4 kilometers. This is where our blue cranes are. We write them down. BC, 2 adults, 2 chicks. They're in the veldt. I'll presume that with some springbok in the background. Perhaps they're near a dam. We also try and figure out which side of the road they're on, because that has traditionally been used to match which habitats the birds were specifically using. And again, if you're a keen citizen scientist, car participant, then you can also measure the distance. You do need a bespoke instrument to do that, a rangefinder, but I won't touch on that today. And then we record activity. Data entry is as a consequence of everything being done on paper, then a manual process, which you have to go to the website and you then have to click down, have to find your route, and then you click in the different species. So if you are interested in getting involved, it's also really cool to go to the BirdMap, car.birdmap.africa, have a look at the routes over there. And what we have here is an indication of if a route was surveyed or not going across time. So this is now the Uniondale precinct. Some sites, some routes have been monitored consistently over summer and winter. There's been a gap since about 2018 to 2023 when car was a little bit lost in the woods and in need of repair, but it is picking up again now. But in that way, you can figure out if there is a route that's close to you that hasn't been monitored and which you could adopt. That would be fantastic. Any of those routes, you click on it, you can also then get the species list and what was their detection record over the course of those routes. So in this particular one, blue cranes being seen quite consistently. And then then a lot of these species like Cape Crow were added only in about 2013. So that's why those species appear then. And we also see a route map in order to understand where you need to drive. That longitudinal data, looking at how many birds we're detecting year on year, produces intuitive results. So anyone who knows the helmeted guinea fowl, at least here in the Western Cape, will agree that that species is on the up. Again, there's an entire YouTube video on car specifically, so just going through this quite quickly. Black stork is a species which was uplisted to endangered this year from vulnerable, and we see the decline in encounter rates also reflected there in the car data. Southern bald ibis, good news story. Numbers seem to be on the up, and that is reflected also in the car data. Some more trends for our gorons and small bustard species, all in decline. Unfortunately, Ludwig's bustard, specific problem, not able to see our power line infrastructure and well, it's endangered as a consequence. And on that whirlwind introduction to citizen science, why it's fantastic, Suburb 2 and CAR, I will now hand over to Dave Elhers-Smith, who will give you a little bit more information on the quack counts.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you very much, Alan. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be able to actually talk about quack this evening because, as Alan alluded to earlier, water birds are our most rapidly declining group of birds. So the quack counts, rather ingeniously titled, is the Coordinated Water Bird Counts. And it's very much a sister project, also run at the UCT there, to a sister project to the Coordinated Avifaunal Row Counts, the CAR counts, because it is also done twice a year, in summer and winter, in July and January. And it's also a long-term bird monitoring project. It's been going since 1992, and it takes place at a series of selected dams, estuaries, and wetlands across the country. And I can't overstate how absolutely vital volunteers and citizen scientists have been in gathering these standardized data. Next slide, please, Alan. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's been going since 1992. There's almost 350,000 records of birds. And what's beautiful about this project, it is concerned with abundance of different species, so actual individuals of species. There are 739 individual wetland sites or estuaries or whatever it may be that is housing water birds that are being monitored throughout the country. And there is, because it's a longitudinal data and it's got a very robust protocol, there are some advanced statistics that can be done with the coordinated water bird counts. Next slide, please, Alan. Okay, so one of the sort of advanced applications is the biodiversity data pipeline, also with a genius acronym down to BirdLife, which is the South African biodiversity data pipeline for all wetland and water birds, and it's led by SANBI, the South African National Biodiversity Institute. It is utilizing the two long-term citizen science programs of both SABAP and the quack counts, and it's analyzing these data using, I'm not going to get into the statistics so much, but in using occupancy and state space models to estimate species abundance, distribution, and diversity across these wetland sites. And it does have things that are built in for accounting for imperfect detection, sampling biases, those kind of issues that can creep in with citizen science programs. And it is a tool that's been conceived to inform environmental strategies, to identify priorities for biodiversity protection, and it supports the reporting requirements for international conventions of which South Africa is signatories, things such as the Ramsar Wetland Conventions and the AWA. Jess will tell me off for not remembering what the acronym is here, but I believe African Eurasian Water Bird Convention. So it really helps to feed into these things of which South Africa are signatories to. And yeah, it involves collaborations between SANBI, UCT, and has allowed us to really inform, I'm sorry, wrong page, allows us to really inform the critical projects such as the Red Data Book. So, for example, here, the Great Crested Grebe, we're able to take these data through coordinated water bird counts. And here on the left, we have the distribution and abundance in 2008. And then if you are able to click again, Alan, in 2022, you can see there's a lot less dark red, which means that this species abundance is dropping off and its distribution is contracting as well. So this is an example of how we're able to monitor in real time through citizen science how a bird species individually is doing. So if you'd like to contribute to Quack, it's a beautiful project to get involved with. You can go to the website, pick your province, and then scroll down a list of quack sites that may be near to you. So I live in Port Edward on the south coast in KwaZulu-Natal. So on my doorstep, I have Umtamvuna estuary and Umpenjati protected environment. Actually, it's a nature reserve and estuary as well. So you can find whichever site is close to you. There's a nice little map there to tell you where to go. Next slide, please, Alan. And then, much like the car counts, you are able to get one of these nice spreadsheets, which is pen to paper. You can record this on BirdLife, of course, but there's no mechanism to be able to upload to Quack in the same way that BirdLife allows you to upload to SABAP. So pen and paper is key. And similar to the car counts, one fills in date, time, who's doing the observation, the water conditions, the weather conditions, etc. And this allows comparison across years based on the different conditions present at the time of the count. Next slide, please, Alan. And the second thing that you get is this large list of waterbird species that you can then tick off, and you're able to also, most importantly, count the number of individual birds that you're seeing. So we're able to get an abundance number to each species that we're recording here. So if you want to get involved, please do go to the websites. We are, and I'll speak to this a little bit more in a bit, but we are currently undercapacitated. So Tanya Anderson at UCT is doing a lot of the heavy lifting of the vetting and reception of the data. But yeah, please do get involved if you would like to. Next slide, please, Alan. So this is the website that you can go to. Very easy to navigate through. You've got the menu on the left there that shows you the list of sites, what the survey protocol is specifically, and then how you can submit those data. Next slide, please, Alan. Okay, finally, I'm going to hijack the talk because this is one of my projects, but in keeping with the theme, is very heavily dependent on citizen science. So we have Birding Big Day coming up, the 41st Birding Big Day, and it's going to take place on the 6th of December 2025. If you don't know what Birding Big Day is, do you even bird? But for those that may not or be just getting into birding, it's essentially a 24-hour birding marathon in which one tries to record every single species that they can find in a 24-hour period from midnight to midnight on the 6th of December this year. There are two options, two categories for the event. There's a 50-kilometer radius event or a 6-kilometer radius event. And the 6-kilometer radius event is actually lovely because it corresponds essentially to a single pentad. So one can do a full protocol pentad over 24 hours. Or if you are able within the 50-kilometer radius event to spend more than 2 hours in a pentad, probably unlikely if you're chasing those big numbers, but if you are able to spend more than 2 hours for a full protocol card there, you can also submit to SABAP. In 2024, we had 452 teams, so it's a very large and well subscribed event. It equates to about 2,200 participants. And the event uses BirdLife to capture all data. So there's, one can use pen and paper, etc., but we don't get those data unless they specifically are submitted to us. So BirdLife is the easy way for it to be captured, and it's also a fun way to follow the day, get competitive, see where your rivals are, see how many birds have been logged, etc. It's all on the app under an event. So we do encourage participants to submit their full protocol atlas cards to SABAP using the method that Alan showed us, remembering that just because you recorded it on BirdLife does not mean it's gone through to SABAP yet until you've gone through those extra final steps. This year, I'm incredibly excited to announce that we have a partnership with Return Africa, one of South Africa's premier ecotourism and birding outfits. They are sponsoring the event, and they are very generously donating a lucky draw prize. And the winner stands a chance to win a 4-night stay for 4 people in the Pafuri camp there in Northern Kruger that Jess was speaking about earlier. So please do get involved. Go down to the website there at the bottom and register your team. And then shortly you will get a confirmation email from myself. Please be sure to register with the email address that you use for BirdLife. Next slide, please, Alan. As I mentioned earlier, Quack in particular is rather undercapacitated. We don't currently have a sort of steering committee or a dedicated data repository, etc. So if you do want to support these absolutely fundamental and critical citizen science projects, hopefully we've convinced you how important they are for monitoring our birds. You can send a donation to BirdLife South Africa ourselves. We use these for expeditions for going on targeted surveys to regions that have been undersurveyed or underrepresented within the data set. Core support is absolutely required by the Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology there at UCT, and a call will be coming out. We will see how they're doing recently, and one can get a Section 18A certificate for donations. If you have large funding leads, perhaps an institutional funding idea or a large corporation or something like that, please do contact Tanya Anderson at the email address on your screen. Okay, next slide, please, Alan. And the next slide is just a thank you. Thank you all for your participation. If you are a citizen scientist, your efforts are hugely appreciated. I believe I was just doing a review earlier that there's something like 1,320 years of research when one equates how many hours each citizen scientist puts in. It's something that we as individual scientists could never hope to achieve. So your support and your efforts are enormously appreciated. And thank you to those on the screen. And over to Alan for final words. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, David. Yep, thanks to the organizations hosting SABIP2, so Fitzpatrick Institute, everyone involved, the vetting committees, especially for CAR and SABIP2, and of course our sponsors here within BirdLife South Africa. Thank you very much. And with that, over to the moderator.
Thanks, Alan and Dave, for that really informative webinar. I think, well, hopefully everybody is really excited about Birding Big Day that's around the corner. It's just a really great opportunity to get involved in citizen science. And I don't think those that do contribute actually understand how invaluable the time that they dedicate to those platforms, just the impact that it has on conservation initiatives. We really wouldn't be able to do the work that we do, without your guys' help. So just a big thank you to everybody just on this call who participates. And hopefully we've encouraged those that haven't to get involved. It might seem daunting initially, but if you have any questions, please reach out. There are seasoned atlases who would be very willing to get you involved in a team so that you can start contributing. So hopefully we can see that number that Dave shared of the groups that joined the Birding Big Day last year. Hopefully we can see a lot more participants. So to start the questions, we have a few, and encourage those that have more just to use the Q&A box. So where to start? Okay, so Penny Abbott has asked, why can we not submit data for Swaziland and Lesotho? Who would like to answer that one? Is that the case? Is there a misunderstanding if that is not accurate? Surely they can.
So how about two does
I'm not too sure. Yeah, you can do
Please go ahead, Alan.
well, with the African Bird Atlas project, you can submit data from anywhere. If she is referring to CAR or Quack, well, I think that there you would need to initiate a site, but they're certainly not excluded. The Lesotho and Eswatini are very important parts of our region. The entire red listing project looked at data for South Africa, Lesotho, and Eswatini specifically. So, yeah, don't want to feel like they're being excluded.
No. So Penny, if you're struggling at all, please just reach out. If that is something you want to get involved in. Then Joseph, and apologies for mispronouncing your surname, but Dufitumakiza asks if they can contribute from Rwanda. I'm assuming for suburb 2, maybe even for Kara Quack.
Indeed. So the African Bird Atlas project takes data from across the region. It's probably for Rwanda, you'd probably want to register via the Kenya bird map, just because that's the closest coordinating body who do send out updates. Colin Jackson, Sydney Shema are the key advocates of the project from East Africa, but we would certainly value data from Rwanda and anywhere else from across Africa.
Definitely. Right, so Anita Kutsia has asked, and this is specifically for suburb 2, if you do a bird session, I'm assuming like an atlas or pentad, how do you count the birds? So if you see a bird, for example, a dark-capped bulbul, do you count it once, or do you count it every one you see, not counting the same one twice? So maybe just for those who haven't, because I guess it can be overwhelming if you haven't done it before. Let's say you're in a pentad. What is a brief overview of the protocol?
So the classic protocol is that you only need to record each species once, and that was mostly just for sanity in order to deal with the data entry afterwards. So the apps automatically will record the time and location of any particular sighting. For any sighting within BirdLife, you're then able to go and give supplementary information, such as group size or habitat or breeding status. There's a very large range of extra information which you can provide with every single sighting. And if you want to, you can record birds again and again and again. The algorithms within the apps are clever enough that they'll simply take the first time that you saw the bird, put that in the sequence, and submit that as required according to the bird map protocol. So important there is when you start your birding session is to try and record the birds in the sequence that you're detecting them, that you're seeing them. This feeds into various things. Sequence index is a fun thing, which suggests that the more common birds are those that are reported earlier on in your lists. And technically speaking, you can use time to detection models in order to see if that is true. The basis behind that is something that is rare. It's going to take you a long time to try and find. But if you are seeing, say, lots of black harriers in your pentad for some reason or other, then do by all means using BirdLife list every single one that you encounter with supplementary information, because each of those GPS locations will then be used by BirdLife South Africa and other conservation research partners in order to understand their distribution, both in space and in time. So why they all went for a party in your particular pentad would be the question of interest. But I hope that's covers the breadth of it. Basically, it's listing as you would in the old school days, just pen and paper. But there are many branches that you could go down in order to add extra value to the data that you are submitting.
Great, thanks for that overview, Alan. A stats question from Sashi Kasan. Bird counts, how are you adjusting regarding undercounts or overcounts? So maybe like duplications, just generally asking for any of the challenges or problems you've encountered with the data that's submitted.
Okay, so the actual count data probably more relevant to the coordinated avifaunal road count and the Quack projects. There are a range of statistical techniques which draw on environmental covariates at the time of detection, as well as other detection-related covariates, such as how many observers there are, conditions of the count on the day, and you're able to do things like state space modeling or other kinds of occupancy type models, which will account for variation within those. So if we were able to rewind to one of the charts, which was on David's slide with the Birdie project, or you can go to the Birdie website, click on any one of those sites. It'll then give you the actual counts with an error margin related to the expected number of birds that could have occurred there given the different count conditions.
Great, thanks, Alan. But before more people log off, Doug Haybottle, thank you for highlighting that, because it actually speaks to one of the questions Ria K had. But the Gariep Bird Club in Kimberley will be doing a mini birding big day on 22nd November, aimed primarily at introducing new birders to the protocol. So if you live in Kimberley or nearby, really encourage you to join the Gariep Bird Club for that day. I think it's a really good opportunity to just meet more birders, get involved in citizen science, and that's a good opportunity if you are there. If you don't live in Kimberley, I would encourage you to see if there are bird clubs in the area. If you have trouble finding any bird clubs, please reach out to us and then we'll put you in touch. But I think that's a good starting point to get involved in any of these initiatives. Next question from Wesley Gush. He's a loyal BirdLife user, although he started using iNaturalist for other taxa such as flora and reptiles. He recently heard folks using iNaturalist for logging bird nest sites. Does that pull through to SABAP too, or should he be steering them to BirdLife as it's more appropriate for that? And I think that's an important question, you know, with more apps being developed. And like you were saying, Alan, your daughter rather preferring Bindo because it's visually more appealing. Maybe also speaking to, you know, do those various apps feed into BirdLife, or is that one of the challenges you're facing? Yeah, and what are the links?
Maybe I'll let David take this one because he's the one who actually uses the BirdLife data in order to do much of the habitat suitability model. So you'll have more of a finger on the pulse as to what's going in there, but I don't believe it's iNaturalist data.
Thanks, Alan. Indeed, yeah, we don't get any data feeding from iNaturalist into SABAP. So the only two apps that we do receive data into SABAP for are Bindo and BirdLife. So yeah, those two are our preferred apps. They're obviously homegrown South African apps as well. So while eBird has many fantastic features, unfortunately, we're unable to get those data into SABAP. So while eBird does many wonderful things, unfortunately, it doesn't support the SABAP protocol, and therefore we don't get those data, and it doesn't contribute to that long-term data set.
Thanks, Dave. I think that's an important thing to highlight. So although BirdLife isn't visually appealing from a scientific point of view, it's still really important, and hopefully is around for everybody to use. And if you don't know how to use BirdLife, we do have videos that we will be able to share to show you how to use it. And if that is a big need, and we see that, you know, people are struggling with technology because it is something you need to learn, I do encourage you just to go into the field and play around with it. But if we see there's a need, we can always investigate, you know, hosting something on conservation conversations just to have a training day. But again, please reach out to your local bird club. People are very willing to help because they know how valuable this data is. A question from Rob Simmons, who's a massive supporter of BirdLife and always on conservation conversations. So nice to have you here, Rob. But of all the citizen science projects, which is the most important for the Red Data Book revision? So maybe just to double on that question, you know, for somebody who's just starting out, so maybe this is like a two-phase question. If you're just starting out, what is the easiest way to get involved? Should it be SABAP2? Maybe it's CAR because it's less species. You can get involved in a team. So maybe answering that question, and then for the avid birders or those who really can identify various individuals, especially waders, what is the most important citizen science project to get involved in?
It's never a good idea to have favorites, hey, Rob. So, but I think there are two components there, Jess. So I think that like which is the most important one and what's the easiest avenue to entry? They're two different things. Certainly, if you're already okay with your birding, then just downloading BirdLife and using that as an app in order to start creating your lists. Each time you're logging a bird, if it's in the field where the bird actually is, then that's valuable data for us within BirdLife South Africa. So that's like, step one. Going out with birders and other atlases is also fantastic. So keep an eye out for the atlas bashes, which Dave and myself and others put out during the year. So that then feeds into like once you're feeling confident enough, then SABAP2 certainly gives you information on almost all bird species. But again, I have to put the almost in there because all birds are different and not all of them are suitable to just general birding listings. So classic example would be the famous button quail, and you do need to do bespoke surveys for some species of birds. So colony counts for vultures, Cape vultures would be a classic example. Flying over Kruger National Park to look for nests on large trees is another example. So there are exceptions, but SAMAP2 is we're able to leverage that data set in so many different ways. The information was fundamental to all of the terrestrial bird projects in order to inform the red listing process specifically. So that one was fantastic. But then again, these are complemented by CAR and by Quack, which have a stronger focus on actual counts, because you can have southern bald ibis present at a colony, but you don't know how many there are without actually doing a proper count. So, or should we say blue cranes at a dam, like how many is it? Is it 2 or is it 500? These are very different numbers in terms of determining how a population is doing. So these are all complementary. Most of the good bird clubs out there are involved in all of these projects, and joining up with a bird club or a fellow birder is always a fantastic way to go. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, Alan. And maybe on that, so with SABAP2 highlighted as invaluable, the biggest opportunity, coincidental or not, is the Birding Big Day around the corner. There's still time to sign up. Maybe, Dave, for those still on the call, do you have to join a team? Can you do it solo? I guess we also want to encourage, yes, there's a competitive nature to the competition, but you still stand a chance to get or be involved in the lucky draw to stay in for free. But really want to encourage atlases to look at that coverage map and target those light pentads, because how exciting would it be to log birds that nobody else has ever done in that pentad? I really think that should almost be the competition, because that's where you're really contributing to citizen science. Not really just going to Kruger where everybody goes, where we have really good coverage. Going to those yellow, or not yellow, but the white blocks on the coverage map. So if you do want more information to know where you should go, which would be invaluable citizen science data, you can also reach out and we can point you in the right direction. Yeah, right. So Penny Abbott has also asked, speaking to atlasing. Thanks, Penny, for this important question. The best way to find out about atlas bashes. They really enjoyed the one in the Karoo a couple of years ago.
Thanks, Penny. Yeah, no, go ahead, Alan, please. Okay, no, thanks, Penny. We do tend to announce these on the BirdLife South Africa social pages, and then also the e-newsletter that we have, if you're on the distribution list of, and then Tanya Anderson at SABAP, on the SABAP project, also has a distribution list for an email distribution list, so those calls go out there as well. So hopefully between SABAP and BirdLife, the word gets out for those Atlas bashes. So there will be one coming up in Lesotho in February, which is very exciting, and that's co-hosted with, or actually hosted by the Lesotho Highland Development Authority. And it's been going on for a number of years now. So if you'd like to get involved, come up to Lesotho and come and see some of those high altitude specials. Please do let us know. And I'm sure there will be some other Atlas bashes further on in the year where we'll be, as Jess mentions, targeting some of those gaps in the coverage to try and increase coverage and fill in where we don't have the data. Thanks.
Great, Dave. Thanks for that. And also just encouraging avid birders or even bird clubs to, host your own Atlas Bash. We can do with that help. And it's just a great day out. Another question from Rob, because just want to focus a little bit on water birds for a change, or waders. He says he sees a quack count program in East Africa. So on one of the maps. Is that the case? Do quack counts happen in East Africa, or is that primarily a South African initiative?
I believe the quack counts are a South African initiative. I'm not aware of any further up the continent. I believe WaderQuest, which I think is a UK organisation, do some of those waterbird counts further up in the continent. But to my knowledge, quack is a national project organised by UCT.
Thanks, Dave. Maybe just to speak to that, because it's linked to migratory birds, but there's also the International Waterbird Census that takes place every year. Next year is the total counts, so they encourage all countries to count at all their water bodies, so estuaries and wetlands. It's the 60th year next year. So although it's not quack, it's coordinated by BirdLife International and Wetlands International. So if you are anywhere outside of South Africa and you want to get involved in counting or logging waders and waterbirds, please get in touch with either a BirdLife partner in that country. So whether that's Nature Kenya in East Africa or Tanzania, there are also bird clubs, very active bird clubs in those areas. So we'll encourage you to do so, because like our red listing indicated, waterbirds or waders are in trouble. So we really do need your help to continue monitoring them. Christu Fented has indicated that Wader Quest is next weekend. So if you know anything about Wader Quest, jump on that for next weekend. Then maybe one of the last few questions to wrap up. Danella Skinner has asked, is there anything that you would change about SABAP 2? Maybe the protocol, or perhaps a finer reporting scale, for example, something you'd want to see in SABAP 3, if you will, if that's something in the pipelines.
Yeah, no, there won't be a SABAP 3, there'll just be SABAP 2 forever. And we don't want to change the protocol because the different pieces of the puzzle at the moment provide all the information that we need. And in order to compare like with like, so if we fast forward 10 years and we've gone now down to a tetrad level or something like that, then we've got to account for more variables when it comes to determining, okay, well, now we're not seeing as many martial eagles. Why is that? Is that because the spatial scale changed or something like that? So currently, I mean, we really do have the best available data using this BirdLife point location data coupled with the BirdMap protocol, which feeds the SABAP 2 project. So these two in combination give you really everything that you need. So changing a protocol now would be just like, hamstringing the value of all this data collected over all these years since 2007. So I guess the only thing that we'd like to change is getting more people involved. So if we can figure that one out, then we're on for the win.
Great, thanks, Alan. Tanya, going back to quack sites, so she said there are a few quack sites in Angola, Kenya, and Tanzania. So there are opportunities for people outside of South Africa to get involved in the coordinated waterbird counts that will be happening in January, February. So please get involved there. And then,
as I mentioned, Tanya does a lot of the heavy lifting on quack.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Without Tanya, and like Dave was saying, at the moment it's not really a funded position, which is something of a challenge that we are finding. So if you believe in this initiative and you have the means, we do encourage you to donate towards our citizen science platforms. We could really do with large funding streams to ensure that this platform continues and helps us frame our conservation interventions. Last question from Abu Bakar Ringham. He tried to utilize data from a card 1 year ago, but the count was showing X all throughout. Is that an issue with downloading the data, or what was one of the challenges he was facing there? I'm assuming that was with one of the protocols he tried, or pentads he tried to download.
I'm sorry, Jess, could you please repeat the question?
He just said when he tried to download the data, the count came up as X. So instead of values, it was just X.
Presumably download the data from the SABAP website. Yeah, I'm not sure. Could have been a glitch. What you can do, either email myself or Michael Brooks at UCT. We can try and help with that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he wasn't looking at BirdLife data though, because if counts aren't specifically entered, I think there's an X there. But then that's not SABAP2 data. That's SABAP. That's BirdLife information. So
okay.
Those data aren't publicly available. So yeah, just maybe if you could clarify that question for us, and we'll try and help you find a solution.
Right. We've come to the end of our questions. Thanks both Dave and Alan for giving up your evening to speak to this really important initiative. And hopefully we have converted several birders to get involved, especially with Birding Big Day around the corner. And just encourage everybody to either reach out to us to put you in touch with bird clubs in your area, or just go to the website, the Go Birding website. You can find the registered bird clubs there as well. It's a really great, with us presenting at various bird clubs, it's really lovely individuals who are part of these clubs. They organize birding events throughout the year, get involved with these citizen science initiatives. So just encourage you to get involved, meet fellow birders. And yeah, just a big thank you to everybody who are contributing, and we encourage you to continue doing so. Until 2 weeks' time, where we invite Cassie to speak about secretary birds. So have a good evening, everybody. Thanks again, Dave and Alan. We'll chat soon.
Thank you, everybody, and good evening.